My co-conspirators are all in front now. Welcome to the August ColaSec meeting. Thank you all for coming. If you haven't been informed previously, there's an eclipse coming next Monday. No way. Right. Stunning. Columbia is sure to be a complete zoo that day, but I took the day off because I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
You could take like 2.5 minutes off.
And then I would have missed the tailgating all day. See, I never miss an opportunity to tailgate. So, my name is Adam Twitty. For those of you who don't know me, I helped get this thing started, 3 years ago now.
It is the official 3-year anniversary.
It is the official 3-year anniversary. So, we've been at this for...
And we've been at this keep showing
way longer than you would think by watching us. This is Jeff Lang of Virginia Tech. He is a teleworker. He gets to work in his pajamas, which makes us all jealous.
It's awesome.
And this is our host extraordinaire, Josh Huff.
Hello.
He'll have more on that in just a few moments. He's currently working for Stillinger Investigations here in town. And then Corey Grant is...
Come on out with it. Whatever it is, just say it.
Corey Grant is a coworker of mine out at General Information Services, one of their security engineers, and my chief heckler. So,
What are we talking about?
Well,
Wasn't me. I didn't do it.
ColaSec Mini CTF.
Yeah.
Surprise, it's Ralph.
Yeah. I was like, that's not my slide.
Yeah, so I set it up. It's ready to go. So if you got a laptop and you want to take it out, the SSID is ColaSec_network, and those are the scope IPs. So there's some fun to be had if you want to kind of try out some of those. Ask some questions if you need to. Hints, whatever. Have fun.
And Ralph, thank you very much for bringing that out.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
If you're remote and you get in, let us know. We want to talk to you.
Right. Although
Somebody's got a job for you.
Yeah. If a black car rolls up, it's not us, okay?
Yeah.
Slack. The fade in on that is poorly timed.
If you knew how many of these slides were made like 30 seconds ago.
Oh, I have some idea. Absolutely zero organization.
We do have a Slack group.
Right.
We're a bunch of slackers. That's for sure.
If you're not on it and would like to be, we've had, I think, a lot of good conversations on there, a lot of good information. Jobs board, events board, questions board. The have you seen this? Oh my God, I can't believe this happened board. If you're not on there and are interested in that, see one of us. We can get you an invite to it.
So CPE credits, I haven't set out a sheet for that this month, but I will get one up there as soon as I'm done talking up here. If you would like a CPE for your attendance this month, just give me your name, email address, and I will get it back over to you.
If we owe you one from months in the past, bug us again.
Yeah, come harass me. I think I've got all of them out at this point for previous meetings, so if you haven't received one, it's because I don't know that you need it. So come yell at me. And Armands, once again, you're vibing with us. It's just to keep us out of the steel bracelets.
So Corey walks away right as we get to Battlegrounds.
Great.
Somebody's in the parking lot waiting. Maybe you know.
Okay.
Maybe.
So the Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds has a new home because Corey is now homeless. He is presently living with his girlfriend and searching for a home.
Just in my truck. I'm not even.
Yeah,
I'm
he's living in his truck.
Transient right now. Got a trailer and a truck.
Down by the river.
Yeah, right. Since there's no living room for Battlegrounds to live in, we had to find a new home. The proprietor of Witty Octopus, which is officially a vape shop, sort of turned into a bar, It's in a big warehouse. They had a room that was available. So now Battlegrounds has got a home in a retail location. It's open 7 days a week. So I will be sending out something about in the next 2 weeks, getting out for going through all of the hardware that we keep getting, because somebody keeps robbing trucks apparently.
The nice people of ColaSec keep giving me stuff.
And we thank them very heartily for their servers and hope that they're not ill-gotten gains. We have no idea where they came from when the man in white coat's good looking. So anyway, we'll have an event. It'll be probably 2 or 3 hours just getting out server hardware, going through it, figuring out what works, what doesn't, compiling as much good hardware as we can. And then once all that's done, the cabling begins and we get Battlegrounds off the ground. So yeah, keep an eye out on the listserv. If you are not on the listserv and would like to be, again, there'll be a piece of paper in the back. Write down your email address. We'll get that out to you. Did I miss anything?
Sounds good to me.
Hooray.
Yeah, it's not AutoGo. We're not that fancy.
Oh,
I'll switch to
I forgot that.
Oh, that works. Anyway.
Convenient.
Okay. Exploring cryptic communications was a little slacker-like this month. You'll have to forgive me. I was in Italy and London yesterday, so I was on vacation. If you find me asleep later, just push me in the corner. I would recommend checking out that podcast. I listened to it on the my travels last week. It's very interesting about what the cell phone companies know and store about us. The quick TLDR is they can basically like listen to anything unencrypted that they want. Granted that we're talking like a worker in the NOC that most people are not when it comes to the cell towers and that kind of stuff. But yes, it's a very interesting podcast that'll tell you why it would be important to encrypt your voice and or chatted.
That's because basically all the cell phone communications are just, all those packets are just sent in the clear on the phone network, right?
Yep.
Your connection to the network is encrypted, but
Maybe.
once you're on the wire.
Maybe.
Yeah, pretty fun
I
stuff.
don't think it is.
Yeah, fair
I mean,
enough.
the standard says it can be, but I don't think they've ever turned it on.
Probably not.
I believe Mike Dowd is a former DOD. He does consulting for like Quantico on TV now, so he's a former dude that does fun stuff now. And yes, I did get randomly selected for a security audit in London airport. For half a second, I thought, crap, they're going to disappear me until we get back malware tech. But they didn't. They let me get on the plane. The other reason that I was slacker this month on the encrypted stuff is DEF CON had their first recon village this year. They did an OSINT capture the flag. You were allowed to play remote, so even though I didn't go to DEF CON, I decided to stack the deck with SANS instructor Micah Hoffman, SANS instructor Matt Edmondson, and OSINT framework guy Justin Nordine, and we took second place in the OSINT CTF. Pretty cool. There's a couple of walkthroughs out there. If you go to the Recon Village Twitter page, they've got them all linked. They did a pretty good job of embedding some flags into some fake social media, and they had some really, really tricky ones in there too. But yeah, I would check it out if you're into the kind of the recon side of that. There's some really good information in there. But a lot of fun though. I think they're going to continue doing the Recon Village. It seemed to be pretty successful. They had a lot of OSINT talks. So once the recorded stuff make it out there, I would definitely recommend checking out some of the speakers if you're into the OSINT side of things. We were proprietary data. We also lost in the last 30 minutes of the competition. Drove me crazy.
Yeah, but congratulations on getting that far.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Upcoming events, all of the upcoming events.
So we do have a slide coming up about OWASP. That's going to be in August, towards the end of the month, actually the last day there. And we'll get into some more details about that. ColaLug coming up September 12th at the Richland Public Library. Should get back going. B-Sides Augusta is the 16th. I'm going. Who else is going?
probably.
Nice. We should carpools.
Yeah, I was going to say at this point we might just rent a bus.
No, that'll be a good one. I think, didn't you say that we might have a visitor coming down from Tennessee?
We will indeed. Tim DeBlock reached out to me, former organizer of ColaSec, where he moved to Tennessee. Will be coming back into town that weekend and is going to hop in the car and drive with us. So be good to see him again. Besides Greenville is a new event for the board, right?
It was on there. It was there last month. The only detail we know more than last month is it's December 9th, and the call for papers is open.
The page is not up yet, right?
The page is not up yet, and yeah.
Just
So I've asked what the how do you submit a call or the CFP, and it's gone silent so far in the responses. But
What about Charlotte? Does anybody know what Charlotte's doing in October? Is it still anything? Crickets?
I don't
yeah.
know.
You said Charlotte?
Is it still a thing?
Last I checked, but then there's no update.
I was looking at the B-sides list to see if Greenville was on there at this point, and I didn't even see Charlotte.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're doing one this year.
Asheville was cool.
I heard it was a lot of fun.
How big is it this year?
A room full of people, but just big room.
Is it? I'll have to look up what building it was in, see if it was the same one I went to a few years ago. Besides Charleston's coming up again, November 11th. That should be a lot of fun. I might go to that one.
I think there's CFP recently.
Yeah, there's
opened also.
CFPs
Yes.
for those.
But they do have a site where you can submit it. So, of course, they are a month earlier, so they better be on the ball a little bit more.
We'll come back to ColaLog. Isn't there a slide for that?
Yeah, summary of last.
Yeah.
SE Cyber has a lot of events on their webpage. They've got a lot of stuff going on over the next month. I think some lunch and learns that they're going to be involved in and some other things. So if you get a chance, check out their events page, see if there's anything interesting.
Okay, and the last thing on the list is Hacker Halted. We have a ongoing raffle for Hacker Halted. If you'd like to buy a ticket for that raffle, it's $10. The tickets go for, is it $100 per ticket or is it 200 per ticket?
200 per ticket.
200 per ticket. We've got 2 of them. There will be 2 winners for the raffle. So if you win, you'll get one of the tickets. If we run through the list of winners and nobody else wants them, I guess we'll give both tickets to one winner. But I can't imagine that people who bought into the raffle won't want to go. Looks like it's going to be an awesome conference. And we should do the drawing for that this month.
I heard somewhere out there that somebody has a suitcase full of whiskey. But I don't know what that means, so.
It means it's going to be a lot of fun.
I just know that there's some random guy walking around with a suitcase of whiskey.
It sounds like a good life choice, frankly. Okay, so anyway, we will do the drawing for that after this meeting. Send out in an email, since not everybody who's participated in the raffle is necessarily going to be here tonight. And then we'll give them a couple of weeks to check their email and realize if they've won and respond. And if they haven't, then we'll keep drawing numbers until I find winners. So that is that.
So the ColaLug met last month. It was the 20-year anniversary. So we're measly with our 3-year anniversary. But it was a good time. We had a small group that showed up. The original founder drove up from Atlanta, and we were able to talk to him a little bit and kind of get some history about why they started the group. They started it just because they were sitting around and they thought Linux sounded like a neat thing to do, and decided they would meet up with their friends and hang out and see what they could do with it. So it's come a long way since there, and it's still going.
That's all.
But yeah, we'll meet in September. I think that was the 12th. And it's at the Richland Public Library. So if you have interest, I believe that We're having a talk on wireless routers, but I can't remember for sure.
I think that's right. It's
Yeah,
the,
412.
Yes. And now that you can't remember his name, you're making me not remember his name.
Is it the GDWRT talk or?
no, it's Jim Salter's
Yeah, Jim
talk
Salter.
that he did for,
Southeast Linux Fest. Or is
well,
it a
he
different
wrote an article for the magazine.
Wired? No, the other one.
Tech something.
Crunch?
No. See, we're good at this too.
Yeah, great.
We'll get back to you on that. But no, it should be good. He actually breaks apart routers for fun, and they make him write about the ones that actually have good radios in them and good software for you to be able to tune them so that you can actually use it in anything other than just a small room. So.
The WASP. I can jump over this one. All right, so I'm Ralph Holm. For those that don't know me, I'm going to be one of the co-organizers here for OWASP Columbia. We haven't met for a while, but we kind of been busy. But we are meeting up on the August 31st. I'm doing a presentation on web application recon, which is kind of the first stage in application pen testing and just testing in general. So these are some of the topics that we're going to kind of cover. It's going to be pretty hands-on. I've got a VM built that's got an application that's vulnerable, and we've got a bunch of little exercises to kind of run through. So a little bit different, I guess, in that approach. You
need to bring one.
probably want to come early if you want a machine set up for you. I don't really have right now a distribution method for getting the VM out to you guys, but we've got a room that can fit probably 15 or so with computers, and so come early if you want to try out the exercises or share with somebody that's there is fine too. We're also going to do a hacker trivia, so make sure you know the launch code for the Whopper. Make sure you know some of the code names for hackers from hackers, and we'll be doing some giveaways there. So it should be a fun time. So there's the information there. Sign up. Come enjoy. Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
And we'll send the slides out. You don't have to furiously scroll down that URL. We'll send the slides out to everybody. Once the meeting is over. In the news. Oh God.
We're going to start.
What hasn't happened in the last month?
HBO. All your Game of Thrones glory.
Winter's coming early.
Right. And apparently the scripts and didn't they have full episodes get released? I mean, it's bad.
Personal contact information.
Yeah, doxing the actors if the ransom wasn't paid.
And apparently they were trying to get the Bitcoin together to do it.
Yeah.
So they were going to pay it.
I just like the guy's name. Is it Agent Smith or something Smith, right?
Yeah, something like that. If you didn't pay attention to what happened at DEF CON Malware Tech blog, I'm blanking on the guy's name. Hutchins was arrested as he tried to get on his plane to fly back to the UK and charged with building a banking malware, a piece of banking malware. Apparently they have phone records on him or something. He was arraigned in Milwaukee yesterday, I believe so, and is currently facing charges and not allowed to leave the U.S. So that's a really interesting story. If you haven't heard about it, go look it up. The interesting bit is his involvement. He's a security researcher and writes exploit code as part of his job. His contention is that the code he wrote wasn't intended to be used in the way that it was. It just, once it got released, somebody took it and used it in the malware. So it's, and there are many, many other facets to that story. The phone records that the FBI has, not least of which. So dig into the story, read about it. It's worth your time. What else?
What have you guys seen in the news?
Sonic something on Google Play been going through several iterations, different apps in the Google Play Store. I can't remember what, this was a messenger. The most recent one came out hidden inside a messenger program. You download it, but it would discreetly take screenshots and video capture, voice recordings.
Lovely.
Like that background.
Yeah, because that's what I want to doing.
Yeah.
There's results from DEF CON Hacker Village of voting machines versus hackers.
Yeah. Oh.
Point hackers.
Right. That lasted what, 3 hours?
Yeah.
If that. Yeah. It was pretty much all of the voting machines, right? They had broken all of them in hours. So yeah, feel confident when you cast your vote electronically that it may or may not be your vote. Something you said. I had something and I lost it.
Hackers, voting machines, potatoes, raspberries.
Right. Oh, the it worked. So
Say it before you forget it.
one of the internet-connected door lock companies.
Potato.
Right. Why would you do this? Internet-connected door lock companies issued a firmware update that bricked a whole bunch of their products. Like 100,000 door locks just bricked. Don't work no more. Yeah, they said they'd fix it in 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. I hope you took your keys with you.
Right. So yeah, don't buy an internet connected door lock.
Rock meat window.
Oh God. Any other horror stories from the Internet of Things?
I think all the stories are horror stories from the Internet of Things. But
There's a Twitter account called Internet of Shit. You should go and look it up. It's glorious.
All of this is the beginning.
Yeah.
What was the salt and pepper shaker of this past month?
oh yeah,
Or
that one was
sugar.
awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier to go to your phone, unlock it, go to an app, find out which salt and pepper shaker in the restaurant that I want, how much I want to do, and then have it dispensed. Right there, right in front of me, instead of picking up the shaker.
I'm glad I didn't have to touch that damn dirty salt shaker. It's only got my food in it.
Those are sticky.
Okay. One last slide we've started baking in because of all of our partners and sponsors. All of these folks have helped us out in some way or other, and in all in not small ways. So thank you to all of these folks: Conquest Brewing, Witty Octopus, Fail, Training Concepts, Sir Ralph back there, and of course the incubator, because we wouldn't have a roof over our head otherwise. So at this point, I think we're out of things to talk about.
I don't know. I wasn't here for all the slides that got added.
That should be it until we do the presentation.
Cool. So our speaker tonight is Pierre Canoe. He is presently a security engineer for Cisco. He's a consultant for Cisco and a security engineer for that game company in California. Coming to speak to us tonight via Google Hangouts about building a comprehensive information security program. I'm looking forward to it. A quick break and get him set up to present, and then we'll come back and have his presentation. If you want to take a few minutes, hit the restroom, grab some refreshments, and we will be right back.
There's some imperial and pumpkin flavored imperial stout over there, too, buddy.
Yeets it.
It smells good.
It does smell good. I smell good.
We've also got some other snacks. We used to have chips. I don't know what happened to our chips. I don't know. Might be.
Do you stuff sharing your screen?
Everything.
Click on the screen share button again.
Let me know when you want me to share my presentation.
Oh, I know what's going on.
I'm glad you know what's going on.
I choose if you present.
Right.
You do not get to choose if you present.
Okay.
What are the targets on the range?
There he's set up.
That until the wheels fall. What's that?
Where are the
Present him
targets
to everyone.
Oh,
Make sure he's
192,
selected.
168.
let's see, we got 102.
Dot 102?
Yeah, 182, 168, and 102.
192, 168, 102.
Yeah, and then
Questions. Because if you mute your sound, yeah, whoever's doing the broadcast has to have the microphone attached. Like that laptop and microphone attached to it.
I would say let's switch it, but frankly, at this point,
Let's just do that. Let's leave one of those for now.
Yeah.
All right, Pierre, we can see your screen. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Yep, no problem.
Okay. We'll probably mute our side.
So 102, 104?
Okay.
Maybe.
102, 104, 106?
let's see.
Because there's friendlies
If
mixed all
somebody
in
has
there.
questions,
Yeah,
we'll
102.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'll refresh you.
Oh, is he back in school?
I don't know, I thought he was at, he was taking classes at training council, right?
All right, Pierre, you still with us?
I am.
All right, we are ready to get started anytime you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As we go through the slides, if we have any questions that pop up, I'll ask for questions occasionally. Otherwise, I'll take the majority of them probably at the end of the presentation. But as we go along, there may be some obvious places where I'll pause. So we'll just go on through it. So the agenda today is going to be going over a little bit about the current state of information security, nothing that will be a surprise to you folks. Going over some of the ideas behind mission statements, strategies, goals, and objectives as they relate to information security programs, continuous assessment and improvement of security programs, roles and staffing, and then common approaches that I've seen succeed with regard to creating information security programs. So as was mentioned before, I'm currently with Cisco in their Advanced Services Division. My specialties are advisory services, network segmentation, and security operations center development. So I work a lot with SOCs and detection organizations trying to improve the detection capabilities, a lot of blue team activities, also some of those combined blue team, red team, purple team kind of activities. My background is pretty extensive with information security. I've been doing it for quite a while. Used to be with a number of financial services organizations, some pharmaceutical organizations, and also been consulting now for about 10 years with Verizon Cyber Trust, IBM, and then recently with Mandiant as well. So I'd like to start off my slides with a little bit of a inspirational quote. So one of the ones that's sort of an inspirational quote and sort of maybe not some days, security is a journey, not a destination. Meaning, of course, you can't just buy security. It's not just something you can implement once and you're done. This is something that I have to consistently and constantly remind people when they hire me as a consultant that you're not going to be able to just buy it or do it once. And also journey before destination, which is a quote from one of my favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson. So the current state of information security, again, is not a surprise. Some of the items you went over in your recent events stuff highlights the kind of environment that we're dealing with regard to information security. Cybercrime is lucrative. It's happening more frequently than ever. It's happening on a large scale internationally. It's happening domestically. It's happening in smaller organizations. Small organizations are compromised with the intent of leveraging those assets to target other organizations. There's been it's not quite as much anymore, but it used to be a lot of targeting of intellectual property by certain geographies for leveraging and stealing intellectual property and then selling it back, or by avoiding purchasing intellectual property, etc. So there's a lot of different types of cybercrime. Ransomware is huge, and it's only getting bigger, and even destructive ransomware, which is not really ransomware, but just to destroy things from a targeted perspective. All that stuff's happening, so security is, of course, critical. Not all enterprises take appropriate precautions. This is consistent. This is why we need a security program that gives a foundational perspective with regard to where we're trying to focus our skills, focus hiring, focus technology, etc. Enterprises that do try and maintain security often have skill, staff, and technology shortages that limit their successes. I don't necessarily have a solution for that. That's something that the best thing I can suggest with regard to skill and staff shortages is share your knowledge. This is a great organization for this. I've watched your guys' slides, and I'm kind of inspired by all the cool stuff you guys are sharing with regard to other all the meetups you have and all that sort of stuff. It's really cool. That's the kind of thing that we need to do to increase and to help to get more staff with regard to information security. And malicious actors have an advantage because they don't have the same considerations we have with regard to business functions. They don't have to meet deadlines. They don't have to have uptime. They don't have to worry about, is the business functioning? They can just throw things at a system until it fails, or they can do all kinds of things that we as IT or security professionals could not do. So how do you counter this? So the first thing I start with is something that I used to say all the time when I was with Mandiant, which is be prepared for intrusions. They're going to happen. Compromises happen. Breaches happen. So be prepared for that and know what your plans are, and test them and practice them and know how to see what those things are. Develop plans and procedures, but keep them flexible. You want to be able to adapt to the reality of the instance you encounter. Today, it may be a PowerShell thing that you may be aware of and may be able to find. Tomorrow, it may be something else. The next day after that, it could be a combined attack or something that you totally couldn't predict, today or 2 years ago. So you have to maintain flexibility and continue to adapt. But you still need to establish clear and meaningful mission statements that drives the information security function. That's kind of a challenge because while being flexible, you still need to have a goal and a mission in mind with regard to the team so that the team can stay focused and so that your customers can understand what it is you provide. So one way of doing this is to leverage existing standards and baselines. This could be the ISO 27001 type of standard. It could be an ITIL-based standard. It could be a common list of security controls, etc., NIST standards. But don't rely on them to answer all of your needs. They'll provide you with information and a good framework, but I have yet to see an environment that's gone 100% towards any standard effectively. Partner with the business people in your organization. And so if I'm talking about a commercial organization, the people who actually make the money or provide the product or create or design the products, etc., they likely have concerns that you need to understand and address. If you don't address them, they'll go somewhere else. Unfortunately, this seems to be a growing trend where if their needs are not met, a lot of internal folks will then do their own part for looking for other solutions, whether that be selective outsourcing or they call shadow IT and that sort of stuff like that, which we don't want to encourage. So make sure to be clear with understanding what the business people in your organization have as far as concerns, address those concerns, and then give them periodic updates with regard to either metrics or reports to give them an understanding of what it is you're doing for them and keep the dialogue going. Understand periodically from them what their concerns are and let them know how you're dealing with it. And then continuously reassess the success of the services you provide. Make sure that you're providing services that are still relevant and that the skills, technology, etc., are relevant to the current threat that you face. Be prepared to make modifications along the way. Things will change. So going back to the kind of the premise, what is an information security program? An information security program essentially is a framework. It's going to be how the information security team functions, what services you provide, what the goals are, and what your objectives are. And again, it needs to be meaningful to your environment, whatever your environment is known for, what your business is, what you're producing. If you're a manufacturing organization, maybe it has to do with the security of your intellectual property as well as your physical devices that do your manufacturing, etc. And you want to make sure it's customized for your organization. Expect to take time to staff up and implement your program, and don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to offer all levels and detailed levels of services for an initial organization. If you have a new security program you're trying to deploy, it may be difficult to be able to provide in-depth malware analysis in-house. That may be something you're going to have to rely on other either teams, partners, or maybe consultants or something to function. As you go along, it may have a need for that. If you are continually seeing that as something that you need, then maybe that's something you could develop or work into. But not all organizations will have all functions within them provided internally. So by making it meaningful for your environment, what I mean is you want to make sure that you're allowing business to function in a secure manner. So again, the root kind of motivation for information security is to provide security oversight and awareness for the business, making sure that the business knows what they should be doing and how to do it securely. So we need to be able to advise them and guide them in a way that allows them to get their business done with minimal risk. So we want to establish periodic meetings and share ideas and concerns with the business folks. Build trust both ways by being involved in the new business projects. When they have a new project or a new service offering or a new application they're developing or technology, whatever, be involved with that. Be internal consultant for them. Assess what they need, validate their configurations, and give them feedback about things that you've identified that are risks. Train the business people in what to look for from a standpoint of malicious activity, suspicious activity, and that sort of thing, so they can be your eyes and ears and help them to identify when there's a project that's coming down the pipe that you need to know about that maybe was not going to involve security. If you have the business folks trained, they'll involve you regardless. And it does take time. Planning ahead with a detailed 1-year plan at starting and then a 2 to 3 year plan for your more strategic aspirational goals will help you to prioritize and plan for adding new services, staffing increases, etc. This also helps to establish credibility with your management, executives, and business stakeholders. If you have a plan to work towards and you're meeting it, they'll have confidence that they're spending the money in the right place and that they're giving you the things you need, and there'll be a good rapport there. And be clear about communicating. If there is a situation where you're not going to be able to meet your goals, work with your management to understand why the reasons are for that, and bring that up and address it up front, as opposed to being a situation where you're unable to deliver. Again, don't overcomplicate it. Your initial program won't cover all the possible functions. You can address some gaps by outsourcing, combining roles, adjusting service or functions, or maybe implementing them at a later date, and prioritize the ones that are most needed right away. And then you can add those other functions as time goes on, or maybe you decide that we really don't need necessarily in-house this function. We can have this outsourced, or we can leverage it in this other way, or maybe another internal team provides this. Maybe your IT networking team provides you with log management, etc. So any questions on that first section?
I think everybody's good.
Awesome. I will continue then. So we're going to go in a little bit to talk about mission statements, strategies, goals, and objectives. I'm not going to go in too much detail. I'm going to kind of keep it high level, but I'm going to kind of keep it flowing. But those items, the mission statements, goals, objectives, and strategies, are different layers of looking at how we want to, let me show you this slide, on how we want to break out the different goals and the different objectives you have from a measurable perspective, so you can communicate that to your leadership. Hold on one second real quick. Yeah, so so the approach I'm going to be covering today is an approach that I've seen before be successful, and there are a couple different approaches I'm going to pull from. ISO 27001 is one that I mentioned before that I'll be referencing a little bit, and also ITIL, which is a process framework that's used a lot within IT. And I don't necessarily embrace either of them 100%, but they're good guidance, and maybe together they can help to make a better security program. So the premise I have with regard to the mission statements, etc., is that you establish mission statements kind of as a foundational piece for your whole program. And then upon that, you build strategies, and then there's goals that are linked to those strategies, and then there's tactical objectives that are linked to those goals. And you're able to measure at every level to see whether or not you're making success and how you're progressing with regard to those. Your services, as I mentioned a couple times before, kind of fit between the strategy and the goal. The strategy defines the services, and the goals are the implementation, or how you actually get there. The objectives, again, are more tactical. Those are all necessary, from the way that I've seen this implemented before, to be able to provide feedback to leadership and management about how you're succeeding. So starting from a mission statement perspective, it may sound a little bit cheesy, but a clear, meaningful mission statement goes a long way to providing clarity of what the information security team does. By having a good mission statement, it helps your employees, your IT security employees, know what's expected of them. It gives them an easy way to check if they're doing something that fits within their larger mission, and provides guidance to your management, partners, stakeholders about what your focus is. It also informs any other customers you have, so they know when to contact you, what to expect. If you have a helpline for information security issues, and people are able to look at your mission statement and figure out when they need to call you, that's based on the thought that may be an incident, and they go, oh, these are the team who handles the incidents, I want to call them for this, etc. It's a good basis, again, for giving your team some good, solid framework. An easy way to start with this is looking at the larger company organization. If there's an existing mission statement you can build off of that exists for the larger company, usually you can build off those and make a modification of that for your information security program. If there's a more specific mission statement for whatever sub-organization the information security team falls under, it might be appropriate to leverage that, whether it be under information technology, compliance, or other places where information security team fits. When developing your mission statement, stay high level. You don't need to reference technology. You don't need to reference any specific functions within the statement. It should be a very high level statement. And then you want to include your stakeholders to provide some feedback or give some reviews of the draft. And these are two examples of mission statements. The top one is from the University of Texas, from their information security office. And the bottom one is one that was drafted at an organization that I worked at as a consultant previously. So just read at the top one real quick. Mission of the Information Security Office, as required by state law, is to assure the security of the university's information technology resources, existence of a safe computing environment in which the university community can teach, learn, and conduct research, The ISO collaborates with campus IT leaders and university audit, compliance, and legal units to support the university's teaching, research, and public service missions. Again, fairly brief. It does link in some obvious stakeholders by its statement. And it does give an idea of what it is the team does at a high level. So that's basically mission statements. And we do recommend, again, you spend some time working out what's going to happen from a standpoint of what would be a good mission statement for you folks, for each of the organizations you guys represent. From a standpoint of the next step would be to go into strategies, and would be developing strategies that are based on or related to your mission statement. So the strategy must stay high level. It should also avoid technological or technical references and align with business concerns. This is where you get more feedback from your stakeholders and understand what their concerns are and what threats they see on the horizon and what keeps your C-level executives, your board members, et cetera, up at night and how you can address those. This is where you can get their buy-in early from a standpoint of either funding or service development by addressing their concerns with a strategy. So examples of strategy, these are examples, all the examples that I'm giving today, besides that one from University of Texas, are ones that I've actually used before at a customer. Yes.
Got a question for you.
Yes.
For the way.
May I?
Yeah.
So at that level, is that where you might engage in something like a risk assessment or some other type of high level look at the systems and the information that's in the organization to try and build that strategy?
Yes, that would be a good time to do a high level risk assessment and maybe to do like a threat modeling exercise with regard to your applications or whatever services. And again, I'm being very broad in this because I'm sure that the folks in the room there probably represent multiple types of businesses. But at a high level, yes, absolutely. That's a good time to do that. Whatever you can do to pull on the information concerns of leadership, of your peers and stakeholders, and of the general kind of state of security in the organization. A risk assessment is a good way to do that. Yes. So these strategy examples, again, I was starting to mention that these are tied back to that mission statement above. Let me go back here real quick. This mission statement on the bottom, mission to provide information security solutions and support to the enterprise, including product service lines, to provide for a safe computing environment and reduce the risk and business impact of information security threats. So that mission, kind of keeping that in our head, these strategies link to that. So A, focus the information security organization on protecting mission critical systems and data. That ties right back. Align information security services with business objectives to reduce security risk. Promote cybersecurity training and awareness within our user community. Establish an effective risk management program to identify risks throughout the environment, and then establish comprehensive information security monitoring program. So these are all strategy examples. How are you going to accomplish your mission? How are the things? And we'll get a little more granular with regard to the specifics of this as we go down talking about objectives and goals. But this is a good way to start kind of giving your stakeholders a way of understanding what it is that you're doing and the services you're going to be providing. The next level down will be the goals. And the goals align with the strategies and drive the information security organization towards accomplishing the mission. So the goals now have to be specific. Instead of being vague and being sort of high level, they have to be very specific about what it is you're trying to accomplish. They have to bring together the technical aspects of the information security and business concepts, and they have to keep in mind or consideration of the business goals. They should be measurable, and you should be producing standard metrics for your goals. And the goals can affect objectives, strategy, and controls. So the goals may then percolate down to the other items below them. So again, looking at, if we look back here at the strategy examples, so these strategies are what we're going to use then going forward, looking at this to look at the goals. So if we look at the goals that I have as a draft here, related to strategies A, B, D, and E, we have item number 1 here, which is identify business critical systems and assess their security posture and risk. I like to link each of these goals as you establish them back to those strategies so you have an obvious linkage. So someone would say, well, why are you spending time identifying business critical systems and assets? And why are you assessing their posture and risk? And you can easily say, this ties back to 4 of our main strategies. This is absolutely critical for us to be able to enact this. Same thing for the next one, maintain an effective security awareness program. That ties back to strategies A and C. establishing an executive governing board to understand business risk and concerns and communicate the effectiveness of the information security program ties directly back to strategies B and C, etc. So each of these goals ties back directly to at least one of the strategies. Now, these ones all have a bit of synergy from the standpoint of tying back to multiple strategies. You could have a one-for-one. You could have a many-to-one. There's no limit necessarily on the number of goals you should have. You should make it still achievable. 5 seemed like a good number for the organization I was working with at the time. Any questions on the goals?
I think we're good to go.
Cool. Here we go. Now into objectives, and this is where you get again a little more tactical. Objectives are linked to the goals, and they help an organization focus on specific activities that help accomplish the goals. So this is again where you get extremely tactical, link them to the goals. These are measurable, and these initiate a project. And this is where you ask for funding there in bold letters. So this is really the items when you're doing your budget request for the year. You look at objectives and you tie them back to goals, but your objectives should be projects or things you can implement, develop, or accomplish usually within a year. So objectives are the 1 year things to accomplish. The goals maybe 1+, and strategies are more like a 2 year, 3 year kind of direction you want to go in. So these are some sample objectives that again match the various goals. So again, we've gone through another layer of abstraction. We have these objectives: implement risk management business practice throughout the specific business unit. That matches goal number 1, which then matches back to strategies A, B, D, and E, etc. So there's a relationship then. Each objective is tied back at least to one goal, which ties back to at least one strategy. So there's a linkage, a very obvious linkage between each of the things you're enacting at this level when you're asking for funding, staffing, etc. You can explain your reasoning and your logic behind how you got here. The upside of this is it very rarely do you get any questions about why. Very rarely do you get the why question. Why do you want this? And if you do, you can explain it very easily. You can cover that question very thoroughly with logical direction of where you got here. And maybe there's some room for negotiation. Maybe that's where you say, well, we can implement this the first half of the year. We can start this other one later on. Just because these are all objectives and intended to all be projects, they don't all necessarily need to start and complete at the same time. Different projects have different cadences and may accomplish faster or slower depending on what the goals are. So again, to try and illustrate this, I've taken some of the objectives here and the related goals and strategies. So here's an objective: implement risk management business practice throughout the business unit. It's related to goal 1, and it's related to strategies A, B, D, and E, etc. Then create additional methods communicating to users during security awareness. It's related directly to goal 2 and strategies A and C, etc. So this is the kind of matrix you would then create to be able to tie it back to each of these goals and strategies and objectives. So when you have a question about how you're doing on these things and how your objectives are relating to your goals, you can map this out and you can then explain to people the specifics about what it is you're accomplishing. Any questions on that? That's kind of the probably the trickiest part of it, and it does take a certain amount of management commitment to kind of give you the reins to be able to enact those things. But once you get started and have done that mission statement, then you've done your risk assessments, et cetera, your communication with your peers, and established those strategies and what their concerns are, and then created goals with them along the way. If you've involved your business partners and peers along the way, there's going to be no question about how you got there and what it is you're asking, and you'll probably get a good level of support.
How do you determine kind of a level of priority when you're looking at something like that?
That's going to be, it's a little tricky. So from a priority perspective, it depends on what the company's risks and concerns are. So and I'll just use an example, financial services company, let's call it a bank. They obviously, their biggest concern from a standpoint of their company is 1, trust. They want their customers to trust them, and 2 is actual compromises and breaches. So anything that can address their concerns with regard to compromises and breaches and establishing or maintaining the trust of their customers are going to almost always be high priority items. So looking at some of the items we listed here, let's see, implement capabilities to prevent, detect, respond, and contain security incidents So item number 6, that one would be one that I would prioritize higher, just from a standpoint of the function of it in that organization. Really, it comes back down to understanding what the business threats are and what the current state of the IT and the technology organization is. If you're an organization that's maybe brand new, it's a startup, and you don't have much out there, maybe the first thing you need to do is spend some time understanding what the business is doing, how it functions, what your assets are, and then what kind of information you currently have. Spend some time doing that. Then you can make an idea of what those threats are, and that will then lead you towards strategies that make sense. And from a standpoint of prioritization, I would say take a good security cut at it first, and then work with the business to see if they can validate and if they support your prioritization, and go from there. I generally try and stay reasonably focused on what the business's concerns are. Obviously, from a standpoint of actual detection and mitigation, it depends on the assets, where the assets are, where the crown jewels of the organization are, whatever it is you're trying to protect. That could adjust prioritization if there's a huge risk. If we are a credit card company, yet we don't have any encryption in our credit card data store, that could be something that would then become a higher priority strategy based upon a goal of maintaining PCI compliance, or maybe protecting against a data breach. So that's kind of the approach. Hopefully that helped. So we're going to go on to continuous assessment and improvement of the security program. So as I mentioned before, it's a journey, not a destination. Once you establish the program, it's not going to be something that you've done and over with, and you don't have to ever assess it again. It's going to be a continual process. So once you've established the program, you have to now go back and show what progress you're making on your objectives. And considering the dynamic nature of technology and business, et cetera, you're going to establish ways of validating that your goals, strategy, objectives are still appropriate and prioritized. This goes back to your prioritization question. If there's a situation where there's an imminent breach or where there's an imminent attack coming that we know of, that kind of takes priority over other things from a standpoint of working on whatever it is you need to do to mitigate or prevent those things, for sure. So from a standpoint of measuring success, you need to generate metrics to show how you're making progress on the objectives. Maybe an objective you have is to, and depending on how advanced your detection capability is, maybe your objective could be related to detection events. We want to detect whatever metric of attacks and be able to identify the initial source of the attacks, and then maybe prevent data exfiltration, whatever it may be, whatever your goal is. And maybe that's part of the metrics. You can say, we've been able to identify that we haven't seen this based upon these sort of detection events or capabilities within our environment. And that could be an objective and could tie back to your goals and your mission. So objectives, again, as we mentioned in the previous slide, should be projects. They should be measurable, have a plan, have staffing and cost expectations, and also have periodic reporting. So you want to be able to have periodic reporting that goes back to management, to stakeholders, so they are aware of how your security program is progressing. Example of a sample metric. This was one of the objectives. This is objective number 5, which is establish information security steering team with a business and IT security leadership. So the metric that I've put in here is within the next 12 months, establish the steering team includes business and IT security leadership. And we've got 3 items here that would be measured. Develop a steering team charter that includes the list of roles within 3 months. Establish a recurring meeting schedule for the steering team meetings at a minimum quarterly, and conduct at least 2 sessions. Estimate 1 month to establish the schedule and 6 months to conduct the sessions, and then conduct an initial kickoff meeting within 1 month. So each of these are independently measured and would be tied back to a specific objective number 5. And again, this could be something that would be accomplished fairly quickly. These are all fairly achievable items themselves, but together add up to an objective that is, again, a larger piece of the puzzle. The whole idea, again, is to break it down into achievable chunks so you can go ahead and achieve those things and finish those and get those done and continue making progress towards those other things that you need to accomplish might be more difficult. So depending on how your organization is set up and your approach, you want to make sure your metrics are provided to your stakeholders, information security management, and senior management like C-level executives as appropriate. And the metrics, again, provide a way for you to measure success of your program and share with your stakeholders, management, and customers. And on the upside, it also forces a conversation about the state of the program. If there's a situation where you're not getting the funding or support that you were intending to get or that you were promised or were part of the original agreement, this gives you a chance to bring that up and say, well, we were originally supposed to have X number of detection analysts hired within the 6-month period. We were able to hire 1 of the 5 we intended to hire. So we have to reprioritize things because we don't have the staffing. So we're going to have to backfill with additional consulting team members, or we're going to have to consider outsourcing a part of this or whatever it may be. And that's where you'd have those conversations. Any questions on that section?
So the concept of having metrics on your progress is great, but it's a little abstract to me. Can you give me some sort of examples about what you might be able to measure and give tangibly to your higher ups to show that you're making progress?
Sure. Let me go back to some of the objectives here and I'll. So example, frequency of security awareness training from 2 years to annually. You want to make a plan to achieve that. So you want to say, you know what, within, we have 100% of the users who want to move over to doing it annually. We'll start by communicating with X percentage of the company and having them take this training. And then maybe within 6 months, we want to have 50% of the company having received this training, et cetera. So you just break down by percentage and by temporal measurement how you're accomplishing those various things. Let's see. Implement capabilities to prevent, detect, respond, and contain security incidents in the environment. A little more esoteric, but I would break that down into various steps. So I would actually break a metric down for each of these things: prevent, detect, respond, and contain. If you don't have a technology or capability of doing any containment, then that's one of the first things you need to look at is selecting a containment technology, selecting or building a playbook. All the various things that are kind of the expected building blocks to having that service functioning. Those should all be part of your objective, and when you create a plan to accomplish that. And then you want to measure success on those. So we spent, we say we've got 3 months to develop a playbook, and then we want to have it in place within another month after that. And we want to have the technology deployed to a certain percentage, maybe of high-risk systems within a certain time frame. Again, you just want to take those projects and break them down into smaller measurable pieces as much as possible so you can communicate with leadership about what it is you're able to do. And maybe that's also where you can have those conversations with leadership about what's practical and what's not. Maybe you can say, well, within 6 months, we can certainly select software and deploy it to maybe X number of high-risk environments, but we're not going to be able to do 100% of the environment. So we need to prioritize with your help, management, which of the environments should get it first. And that we have a suggestion based on risk, and we would suggest A, B, and C. Do you concur? Again, it gives you a chance to build that rapport with them and understand their concerns, and then still do it in a phased approach. Let me know if that helps.
Yeah, I think they got us.
Okay, excellent, good deal. And again, each one's a little different. If we had specific one that we want to talk through, I could talk through that offline or whatever. Metrics are a little esoteric, and that's one of the things that it took me a while to kind of wrap around an approach to it as well. The easiest way that I look at it is I just think of it from a project perspective, and every task within a project is something that can be measured, and you want to show the percentage of how you're doing on those things. From a standpoint of roles and staffing, this is just a sample information security organization and all the various functions within it. And we talked about some of these kind of in brief: governance, architecture, operations, engineering, and identity access management, and all the various different sub-organizations and functions below there. This is not intending necessarily each of these boxes to be an individual. Some organizations, there's one person that does everything. Maybe there's like 3 guys that do everything. Maybe there's 15 that do a smattering of these things, or whatever it may be. So you're going to have to figure out which roles, functions, and structure work for your organization. Not all organizations will have each of these functions within them. Some of these things may be provided by other organizations, like your internal IT may provide PKI capabilities or PKI certificate development or whatever it may be. Maybe somebody else handles vendor management. Somebody else does security development or tool support, etc. Those things could be done by other groups, or maybe some of these things are outsourced to a partner, to a consulting organization, or to an MSSP or other organization like that. So the idea, though, is that you want to provide these services somewhere along the way. You at least have considered or provide the services in some way, whether it's outsourced or whether someone has multiple hats. These are generally the things that an organization is going to look to you to provide. And this should get tied back to your strategies and goals. This is where you then say, well, we do these things based upon our strategies. So we're accomplishing the operations side of things. We're doing detection based on our criticality of systems, et cetera, et cetera. So as I mentioned, each of the functions should be considered. Do we need this? If so, can multiple functions be accomplished by a single individual, possibly on some sort of rotation? What levels of management may be required, if any? What functions might be provided by other teams? And which of the functions are currently outsourced or should be considered for outsourcing? Staff retention is another big part of what I like to make sure people think about. Developing a training plan or educational goals with your staff members is really important to retention. And as hard as it is to have good team members, it's really hard to keep them. So part of the things that we consistently see when I do program assessments of companies, et cetera, is that there's a lot of turnover because of lack of training. That's the number one thing that I see as a complaint from staff members. So establishing a clear training budget that's reasonable, but provides enough incentive for staff to continue to pursue training is critical for them staying fresh and keeping on top of their skills. Be clear and factual about the work that someone's going to do when you hire them. That's another big complaint that I see from staff members. Someone's hired as a programmer, this, that, and the other thing, and they're supposed to be doing development of an application or whatever, and they end up being a tier 1 SOC analyst, which may be okay as a rotation, but after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of being a tier 1 SOC analyst, when your head and your interest is in maybe malware reverse engineering, you're going to burn out a little bit. So be clear when you communicate with your staff about what their function is going to be, and they'll be happier and you'll have better employees because of it. And then listen to your staff. You've spent time hiring smart folks. Listen to their advice. They're there for a reason. You hired them for a reason. They're smart folks. Listen to them and pay attention to what they have to say. So we mentioned briefly the different approaches like ISO 27001 and ITIL. I like to do a blended kind of approach that uses a little bit of both. I'm going to talk a little bit about those really briefly here. From a standpoint of ITIL-based information security, you can use a service framework, like ITIL service framework, which may already be in your environment. If you have an ITIL-based IT organization or help desk, this might mesh well with your organization. And could be a good way of translating your mission statements and goals into measurable offerings. And it could provide management with the easy answer of what it is you do around here. That's always the question that sometimes people ask. And that's another reason why we have those goals, objectives, and the mission statement, et cetera, to answer those questions about what it is we do. So a service-based information security program, these are just some examples of services that you could offer. This goes back and kind of is an overlay to the strategies. So identity management, user access, vulnerability scanning, remediation, internal information security project consulting, operational and threat intel, awareness communications, incident response, penetration testing, policies, and security event monitoring. Those are all the kinds of services I've seen provided in security programs as well. And the pros of a service-based approach is that it's a clear understanding of what your team is doing. It's measurable from a standpoint of service, what your services are doing. Could be tactically outsourced as needed, and staff may be able to rotate between services and provides different ability for the staff members to try different types of skills. The negatives is it requires a commitment to establishing the service, the staffing, developing the documentation, et cetera, acquiring, deploying the technology. And it could also be aggressively outsourced, possibly for the wrong reasons, and sometimes difficult to have equal metrics across services. If you're looking at the metrics for your red team and penetration testing team versus your detection team. They're going to have different metrics, and you need to make sure to weigh them appropriately. The ISO 27001 approach is a much more detailed standard for creating a comprehensive information security program. I like it, but it's not for everybody. It starts off by asking some questions like understanding the context of the organization, establishing a list of interested parties, which again is setting up your stakeholders and your peers, identifying the scope of the information security program, which systems and applications and whatever are included. What's the scope of our applicability? Where do we kind of see the information security team having control or oversight in? Establishes management leadership commitment and establishes policies related to and supporting the ISMS. So all these things are excellent. These actually provide a really good framework for an information security program, but it can take a lot of commitment and a lot of time to establish this. There's actually more that goes along with this. It creates an organizational structure within your information security team that relates to and communicates with leadership. So it creates some periodic metrics and periodic communications, establishes a concept of risk management and risk treatment to the identified risks. So how do you deal with risks? Do you accept them? Do you mitigate them through controls? Do you mitigate them through another method? Do you do something else to deal with the risks you identify? And then it creates processes for operation, evaluation, and continual improvement of your ISMS. The kind of long and short of it is it's very structured and can be too structured for some environments and very complex to implement in a large environment. I've rarely seen environments go down the path of doing a full ISO 27001 based security program. Mostly people use it as a framework and guidance, and they like certain parts of it, and then they pick and choose other things like NIST or ITIL or the top 20 security controls to kind of augment the controls they do, etc. So use an approach that works for your environment and provides you with the appropriate level of structure. Don't be structure heavy if you don't need it. Whatever helps to get you the support you need from your management and stakeholders and allows you to communicate your services and functions and capabilities of your information security team. That's really the goal. And that is it. Questions?
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm going to share the slides also with the folks, the organizers here, make sure that they have the copy of the slides as well. So we can, if any people have a question or they want to review those in more detail, because I kind of flew by some of those, you're certainly welcome to, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Be happy to take questions and follow up.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very
No
much.
worries. Now I'm going to get my pizza and beer. Thanks.
Enjoy.
Yep.
So thanks everybody for coming out. Oh god, the reverb just started. Thanks everybody for coming out. There's still leftovers back there. Please go take some. I don't want to take it home, so somebody should.
Mini announcement too.
Oh, you got a mini announcement.
Well, we have a mini announcement. We are still looking for presenters throughout the rest of the year, technically. So if you have thought on a talk, even if it's a smaller one, we can get a bunch of fire talks together and have just kind of a rapid fire night. But definitely get in touch with one of us, and we can see what we get going in the next couple months. I have potentially might throw a new OSINT talk out there. It didn't get picked up at Derby this year, but I have some new material I'm looking to get out there, so I might be on the schedule, but I'm still figuring out what I want.
Cool. And if anybody's interested in buying a raffle ticket for the Hacker Halted conference, get with me. I can take payments electronically via PayPal or Venmo if you don't have cash money with you. So, otherwise, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Pierre.